Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on the exciting topic of longevity as an asset class and how to spot winners in a $1 trillion industry. My name is Ronald. I'm going to be a host for the next 60 minutes max. I am joined here and honored to have Skyler Fernandes from Venture University, partner and founder based in San Francisco, as well as Andy Goldstein, the partner based in Germany, Munich, myself based in Vienna, Austria. So we got continental Europe and the West Coast covered. And we're going to do a short introduction. Agenda-wise, we do a quick intro of the participants. We'll have roughly 30 plus minutes on the topics we want to touch upon. This will be mainly Sky giving us his view and his thesis, followed by a Q&A session. So all the participants can use the Q&A button on there and write their questions whenever you fancy, but we will come to that in the second part of the hour. And Andy will give us a snapshot of the partnership program that we have with Venture University, us as SeedBlink and Venture University. It's been in the news, but it's always good to hear it from the horse's mouth. And without further ado, I'm handing over to Andy for a quick intro.
Yeah, hi, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here today, and great that we've set this partnership up. Sky, thanks for joining from San Francisco. We were really very honored to be working together with SeedBlink. We're extremely impressed by the network of highly professional investors that have been put together, and Venture University is really dedicated to bringing top-notch deals, but also bringing top-notch education. We're set up so that we have master classes, which are available, taught by people with over 50 years of venture experience. And I'll be going into detail about our investor accelerator, which is really the heart of our program at the very end. But I do want to say thanks to SeedBlink. We have a special relationship that we've been building. We've been doing marketing together, and we hope that we can bring together the communities on a global basis to bring great deals to everybody. So thanks again for the opportunity, and let me pass over to you, Sky, and we'll jump right into the topic today.
Cool. Hey, everybody. Yeah, thanks, everyone, for joining. I'm very excited to have this thesis conversation around longevity. It's a thesis that we've been building up over the last few years. I built a portfolio around it. I think internally with the partnership with SeedBlink, we're also looking at doing additional of these webinars, going over some other upcoming theses that we have as well. So I'm excited to be kicking off this first one specifically on the longevity vertical. So I'm going to pull up a slide and certainly want to open it up for Q&A as we're going through as well. But I'm going to kind of just keep this slide up and kind of use this as the background for the overall conversation around investing in the longevity space. As a little bit of a back look at this overall vertical, the longevity space overall, I think is certainly becoming kind of the new, what we would call like the healthcare vertical, but really with a look into the type of technologies that it's investing in are a lot more specific than purely just healthcare investing overall. Obviously, if you can keep yourself healthy, the longer you're going to live. But really the subset technologies that are being innovated are specifically, I'd call them longevity tech, which are different than things that you'd have in certainly things of just like digital health or diagnostics, things like that. So I do differentiate between just like pure healthcare versus what we call longevity. As a way of background too, just quickly on myself, Sky, as mentioned, been doing venture for about 17 years. I've done almost now 200 startup investments. Between myself, Andy, and the other partners, we've been early investors now in over 25 unicorns and had over 20 multi-billion-dollar exits. And I'm really excited when you think about kind of the eras that happen where really large opportunities are executed on and have exits. You have to kind of be alive and investing during those times to have actually gotten access to doing those deals. And so you couldn't have invested in Facebook if you weren't investing during the internet days. You couldn't have done Coinbase if you weren't there when obviously crypto was starting off, or right now in like the revolution that's happening around AI and robotics. And we're a big believer now in that the time for longevity investments is really now. And so those that are going to be investing in this space, 2-3 years from now are effectively going to be late to the game where some of the biggest infrastructure platforms are being played. And so from a thesis perspective on longevity, I'd highlight there's a few things I'd say are always true when you're doing venture capital. One is that you want to go after, in almost all cases, there's always exceptions, to go after the largest possible market opportunities. Two is that you want to go after the ones that have the biggest magnitude of improvement compared to status quo. Three, you want to do market timing, where the market's actually now, not market timing that's going to be here many years in the future. And I think that's largely been a big concern around longevity, is when will that longevity revolution actually happen? And it's always in the future versus now. And I think the now has actually arrived. And then certainly when you're thinking about infrastructure, you want to really do platform plays where the whole industry will be built on top of that. And so the slide that we put together here touches on 6 core verticals. And so I'm going to go over some case studies for each of these verticals to talk about the different portfolio companies that we've invested in that tie into each of these. A little bit of the thesis behind each of those companies. I'll touch on the magnitude of improvement of each one, and also kind of share some of the other highlights about why we're so excited about these plays, and also how we're de-risking each of these deals. In the world of kind of frontier, and I'd certainly call longevity in the frontier vertical overall, it's an interesting aspect when you're investing in these type of deals. While they do seem very bleeding edge, if not cutting edge, you have the aspect of companies like this tend to actually get acquired much earlier in their lifespan. So a lot of times people think frontier is quite risky to invest in. A lot of the deals that we've done in the frontier space have gotten acquired literally 12 to 24 months after we've invested, and they've gotten acquired being pre-revenue, pre-product. And so that is one of the nice advantages about doing things that are really frontier, is that while they can seem higher risk and further out there in the future, they tend to actually bring about earlier liquidity events, and pretty significantly large liquidity events, north of 250, 500 million plus, pre-revenue, pre-product. And so do that as a little bit of an intro into this overall space. So I'm going to kind of go each vertical as we go. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll certainly try to address some of those as we go. So as one of the earliest investments that we did a number of years ago was a company called Xtherma, which is cryogenically freezing organs. If you look at the reasons that people tend to die, you have the things, certainly the older you get, the more problems that you end up having. And often the biggest killers overall of humans tend to be things that will ultimately be the degradation of your brain, your heart, your immune system, cancers, and also organ failure. And so we looked into, this is now about 5 to 6 years ago, we looked into the world of lab growing organs. And at that point, the technology was still very much in its infancy for actually lab growing organs itself. But we came across Xtherma doing cryogenic freezing, where they can freeze a heart, a kidney, effectively in perpetuity. And if you could freeze a large number of organs, you'd create a large supply. Overall, in the organ market, a typical organ usually lasts for about 17 to 24 hours. Your eyeballs actually last the longest, about 1 or 2 weeks. But hearts and kidneys, at best, you're about 17 to 24 hours. And depending on the organ, there's about 10 times greater demand than the availability of organs. And so this idea that you could actually solve this challenge through cryogenic freezing than actually lab growing organs themselves was quite fascinating to us. And so that was actually one of our first real investments into this space around longevity. There's obviously a longer play on cryogenic freezing, which is also the ability of cryogenically freezing your entire body and then kind of unthawing you in the future. But this is a real kind of truly immediate executable solution. And that company in particular has now gone through animal trials. They've now done over 100 pig kidneys and a handful of pig hearts. And they've had 100% efficacy. They actually sent the pigs, funny enough, were from Germany to the United States, and re-put a kidney into another pig, and it worked 100% efficaciously. And coming up in Q1, Q2 of next year, we're going to be doing human trials now for Xtherma. So very excited for that. What's also interesting about that particular deal is it's led us to exploring a bunch of other deals since then that kind of have evolved our overall thesis, which I'll connect to Xtherma as we go through some of these other case studies. But after doing Xtherma, we ended up eventually investing in companies that are lab growing organs, as well as organoids. So we have companies like Invensia that are lab growing organoids of growing little bits of heart, little bits of kidney or brain cells, and you can do experiments specifically on an organoid. And the thesis there is that there's this movement away from doing animal trials for certainly ethical reasons, but also just for accuracy. If you can actually do it on actual human cells, it has a lot higher accuracy than if you're doing animals to begin with. But you can skip animal trials altogether. So that's a big unlock, is this organoid category where you can really do high volume human data. And there's been big conversations around the future of AI with drug discovery. One of the biggest limitations to AI drug discovery is that they don't actually have access to the data. And so being able to do high volume large volume organoid trials is they can add to this very rich database for AI to actually do drug discovery. And then the next evolution after that is now this world of growing organs itself. We have a company called Cellbricks and another one called 3D Biocorp, both of which are lab growing organs. And the timeline for those are still, I'd say, a good ways away. Like those companies, while we're we're impressed by those companies, the timeline of execution from commercialization is still probably in the 5 to 10 year timeline, which is why, again, I think companies like Xtherma are going to come to market first. We're going to have the ability to start cryogenically freezing high supply of organs. And then as over the next 5 or 10 years, as we start growing individual organ sets from scratch, you grow an organ and then you can also cryogenically freeze it after you grow it. So again, even with cryogenic freezing, you can apply it to the organs that you're growing. So that's kind of covered that particular box right there. As a kind of a fallback on the market opportunity too for longevity of how we think about it, is the scary reality about the human population over the next few decades. Is that the UN every year does a report of when they think global population will grow or decline. And it's been a pretty consistent answer, which is that somewhere between 2060 and 2100, so usually people say 2080, is that Earth itself will start having a global population decline. And so at that point, if we don't want to go extinct as a species, we need to either figure out how to live longer, which we're certainly doing here, or we need to figure out how to create more people so we have a sustainable population. More than 50% of countries today are under the population replacement rate of about 2.1 people per woman. Germany is under the population replacement rate. A lot of countries in Asia are. The United States is not yet. We have the benefit of a large amount of immigration, but that also will eventually change. India, overtook China's population a few years ago. The final population to tap out will be Nigeria, roughly around 2080, and then global population starts declining. And so there's this need to figure out, A, how do we start creating more people? And two, how do we live longer? So if we can kind of solve those two parts of the equation, we effectively don't go extinct as a species, which is great. And who knows if we're the only species in the universe, but hopefully we're not. But at least we want to keep the flame of our version of consciousness alive. And so a company that we invested in January is a company called Kangaroo Bio, which is an artificial womb. And so kind of going in the bottom middle here, for the artificial womb concept it's growing taking uterus tissue basically in a box where you can put an embryo and grow it all the way to full-term development inside of the box. We've had great success just in the last few months. We've grown uterus tissue outside of the human body for the longest in history. And likely before the end of the year, we're going to have our first life actually growing. We're starting off with Rhesus monkeys before we go to humans, but we're going to have the first Rhesus monkey that's actually grown in uterus tissue outside the human body before the end of the year, which is going to be a pretty big deal. And then over the next kind of 3 to 5 years, our goal is to get to consistency in growing monkeys inside artificial wombs and then ultimately growing humans in artificial wombs. Key thing that we did around de-risking of this particular deal is that we knew that if worst case scenario, if we could not successfully grow humans, is there still a monkey business here where we can just grow monkeys and sell monkeys? And we found that there's a real opportunity here to grow Reese monkeys for lab experiments, and there's actually a huge shortage in getting access to monkeys for experiments, and that we could generate 20 million to 100 million just in selling monkeys, even if our human business never ends up being a thing. This particular company of artificially, having artificial wombs ended up being the largest investment or the longest investment committee we've ever had in our history. We had about 4 hours and 15 minutes, and we spent about an hour and a half just on ethics, because you're dealing with growing humans without parents. And so you got to think about the future. If technology like this can exist, certain governments could certainly grow literally armies of people that have no parents. And so while it's good for population not to be declining, how do we think about a society where people are being born with no parents and effectively children of the government? And so certainly a fun ethical conversation that we end up having. But this company really unlocks the future of fertility in that women no longer would need to use their womb or even a surrogate's womb for being able to give birth. And so this does unlock significant new potential for fertility options, as well as for being able to maintain a population as well. The company, Kangaroo Bio, was founded by a guy named George Church, who is the head of genomics at Harvard and MIT. He's actually at both, which is amazing. Very rarely the head of both at two institutions. But he's a founder of another company called Colossal, which is now worth about $10 billion. But effectively, it's like a real life version of Jurassic Park. They recently brought back the dire wolf, these giant white wolves. They're planning to bring back the woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed tiger, and potentially dinosaurs. But in the process of doing that, they realize they're going to need some artificial wombs to grow a lot of these extinct species. And so he then co-founded Kangaroo Bio. With this, if we think about kind of the next evolution beyond artificial wombs for really the longevity of fertility, is actually a company that we're wiring money later on today, which I'm very excited about. So it hasn't been publicly announced yet, but it's a company called Conception Bio, which is in our bottom left column here, for growing eggs. So you basically take a skin cell or a blood cell, and you're able to grow unlimited number of healthy eggs. And what's interesting about this one is that you can grow it from a man or a woman. You can grow eggs. So not only women can grow eggs, but now men can as well. And if you have the ability to lab grow an unlimited number of eggs, you can fertilize them, and then you can put them in an artificial womb. So these two companies together actually work almost as an ecosystem, where together, a guy alone could actually produce a child, growing an egg from his own DNA, fertilizing it, and putting it into an artificial womb, which is quite novel. The ability to take a cell, from any part of the body and to change it into another cell is actually a technology that's now been evolved over the last 10 years, called epigenetic reprogramming, designed ultimately from a scientist called Yamanaka, using Yamanaka factors. And so this is actually our first true investment that we're doing that's an epigenetic reprogramming company. And what's amazing about this is if you can successfully grow eggs from scratch and grow young, healthy eggs, you can review the DNA before you even choose to fertilize it. This would really replace the majority of the IVF industry. So this is an extremely big deal if you can successfully do this. And they're planning November, December of this year to announce for the first time in history lab growing a human egg from a man. And so we'll have kind of a double whammy. First time it was ever done from a cell of growing an egg, but also that it came from a man. And so that'll be kicking off a pretty large financing round of about 100 million that they're planning to do. The founder of Conception Bio, when you think of also de-risking, he's also one of the founders of OpenAI, and he's the former chief of staff of Y Combinator, and his conviction on his capabilities in raising capital and his connections. And there's a very well-known CEO, that is part of OpenAI, that's also significantly investing in this company as well. go over now to the extension of this, which is around the world of, if you want to just not only have fertility, longevity, but if you want to have longevity yourself, growing on this idea of what epigenetic reprogramming is, the biggest unlock for longevity, in our belief, is that it's going to be doing epigenetic reprogramming. If you had to think of what is the one technology that has the capability of extending human lifespan and health span by decades or literally centuries, it is epigenetic reprogramming. And so we've gone very deep on this over the last 2 to 3 years, meeting with every company in the space that we can. And if you're not familiar with epigenetic reprogramming, definitely worth going down the bunny hole on this. But effectively using Yamanaka factors, you can rewind the age of a cell to an early version of itself, and it starts operating with its original code base before a lot of mutations happened. And there's been tests now done in animals and soon to be with humans. There does not appear to be a limit to the number of times you can do epigenetic reprogramming. So effectively, you could age for 10 years, take the therapy, rewind for 10 years, age for 10 years, take the therapy again, rewind for 10 years. And so you can be in kind of this immortal state with epigenetic reprogramming. So it's now scientifically possible, no longer kind of voodoo science, this idea that this actually exists to create every cell that we have effectively into an immortal state by bringing them back to basics. And so we have a company that we are planning to invest. We haven't announced it yet. It is one of the category leaders in the space. So we're looking forward to announcing that shortly. But they have raised some of the largest amount of capital for this space. They have some of the leading scientists, and they're doing multiple therapies, which will also be available at a very low price. This is not something that will only be available for the wealthy. There's a huge economic benefit to having people being useful for a longer period of time, especially as they've developed a larger amount of expertise and skills. The projections have been for every 1 year that you can add to a human's useful lifespan, it saves about $1 trillion in the healthcare industry. So it is a massive, massive thing that the government will likely want to support to keep people living longer, especially given over the next few decades, we could have a population decline. On top of this, beyond just epigenetic reprogramming, there's also the world of gene editing. And so we do have a company that we just wired 2 days ago on Monday that is doing this around cancer, where they're doing a natural approach using a gene called P53, which is effectively 50% of cancers are ultimately caused by having a P53 mutation. And for those that aren't familiar with P53, it's like your guardian cell, where any cells that start looking like they're broken DNA or potentially going to become cancer, it basically does the kill switch and kills those. So when P53, as you get older, eventually your body starts mutating the P53 gene, and then it doesn't effectively have an ability to fight for itself to get rid of those cells. So we found a natural way with this portfolio company called General Proximity. General proximity is a natural way of reactivating the P53 gene. So your body just goes back to fighting cancer successfully like it did when you were younger, which is why most people when they're young don't get cancer, and why people when they're older do get cancer. It's because more than 50% of cancers basically have this mutant gene for P53. So we have high conviction on this one particularly. It's a natural approach. When we think of not only technology, but really the approach companies are taking, it increases your odds of success when you're taking a natural approach versus putting a foreign substance into the body to try to kill cells that might kill other cells that you don't want it to kill. And the other amazing thing about General Proximity is not only does it have the ability to kill about 50% or more of cancers, it's also going to be a preventative drug. So when we think about really big deals, obviously doing 50% of cancers is a pretty big deal. But if you're doing something that's a preventative cancer drug, that's also a pretty big deal. And so this is something that, when you're 30, 40 years old, you can start taking it, and it would significantly reduce your odds of ever getting the 50% of cancers. I'm now going to go focus on the top middle category here, which is around clone biology and full body replacement, which kind of brings us almost to the last step before we get to the brain. But the world of epigenetic reprogramming is great if you want to keep your existing body regrowing itself in a very healthy state. And there's certainly the possibility that people will live not only to 125, 150, but you could literally live hundreds, if not thousands, or be immortal with epigenetic reprogramming, as long as you don't get hit by a bus or you don't have any significant damage to your body. But if you did have significant damage, it'd be really helpful to have a full body replacement. And so we have an upcoming investment that we're going to be doing that has not been announced yet, but we're going to be closing on it in about 30 days, where they're cloning using a part of epigenetic reprogramming to do this, but they're taking a little bit of what growing egg technology is, plus epigenetic reprogramming, to effectively create full body clones of yourself, but notably they have no brains. Effectively non-sentient bodies of animals and non-sentient bodies of humans. The first market that they're going after is drug discovery. So if we can go back to on the left there where we had organoids, it's great if you can do tests on just liver cells or heart cells. But imagine if you could do drug discovery on an entire body, right? Where you can actually see how everything is interacting with itself. That would truly be a huge magnitude of improvement of drug discovery on entire bodies that are non-sentient. The second market that they're focusing on is organ harvesting. And again, we talked about cryogenic freezing organs. We talked about lab growing organs. Imagine if you can grow identical clones of yourself and do organ harvesting of your own body that do not have any brains in them. So that's their second market, is organ harvesting. And then their third market is full body replacements, which is growing these bodies with no brains and then having the ability to put your brain into its body. And again, that gives you another way of true longevity if the epigenetic reprogramming ends up not being able to fully replace true damaged parts of your body. So it certainly starts getting into the world of sci-fi. This particular company, because of the sensitivity of what they're doing, they are staying in stealth mode right now. They're not going to be located in the United States. But they have literally some of the world's leading scientists. There's probably only 5 people in the world that can do what this company is doing. And so very excited to be backing it. Interesting note is the 2 biggest expenses of growing bodies with no brains. One was the surrogacy cost of being able to have a surrogate that would grow the body. We solved that with one of our other portfolio companies of artificial wombs. And their second biggest cost is actually keeping the body alive once you grow it to a certain age. And that can be solved through cryogenic freezing. So 2 of our portfolio companies actually solve their 2 biggest expenses for doing these full body clone replacements. And then lastly, I'll touch on the bottom right. The brain itself is truly, I think, probably the final frontier. When you think about who you are as a person, you don't necessarily identify yourself as your hands or your arms, but very much your head, your brain seems to be how a lot of people would ultimately pick where are they located. They're not located in their pinky or their toe, they're located in their head. And so, if you really do want to be living longer, you want to at least be aware that you're alive. And really from an awareness perspective, obviously the brain is a pretty big deal. We have an investment in a company that many of you guys may have heard of called Neuralink. Neuralink is co-founded by Elon Musk. And their initial focus is on the unhealthy population for people that are paralyzed, or they have eyes that can't see. They've already had a great number of successes in being able to reactivate people's ability to exist in this world that have been paralyzed by putting these threads throughout the brain. They're picking up on the data points as you're thinking thoughts. And exciting is before the end of the year, we're actually going to have the first person who's blind, whose eyes do not work, who's going to be using a camera to see through and basically highlighting the visual cortex. With Neuralink, when we were kind of de-risking the evaluation on this, there's certainly a small population of quadriplegics. It's one of those rare exceptions where if small markets are not usually great markets to go after, unless when you do them, you get like 80-90% of the market. And that's like the one exception I'd say is when it makes sense to do small markets is if you can do market penetration, market adoption of almost 100% of the market. And you have that with Neuralink of being able to solve this in a way that no one's really been able to solve it before. If you can move into the healthy population, not only the unhealthy population, then Neuralink ends up becoming a ridiculously large valuation. Neuralink today is worth about 9 billion. And I think that's very well supported just from the unhealthy population of what it can grow into. But the healthy population would put this into a valuation that is almost hard to fathom. And so when we de-risked it, we said, hey, there's an initial market that we can focus on that we know we can execute. There's a broader market where you don't know if the healthy population will actually adopt using Neuralink. And the thesis here is that the speed of data, of being able to communicate and receive data. Right now, the speed that I can speak and the speed that I can type is the data rate that I can communicate information, and the speed that I can hear or read is the intake of data. But it's truly a limited capacity of data rate back and forth. If you can connect the brain ultimately to AI and computers, you would significantly increase this flow of data. And so the ability to learn things like new languages, new skills, would certainly be transformed. But there's also the way of communicating information. There's an element of telepathy that you can do using this. And probably the most weird aspect of this is kind of the bunny hole that our team has gone down. I don't think we've been able to get out of this bunny hole. Is if multiple people are connected with Neuralink, it seems to be conceivably possible where you could see out of someone else's eyes and be aware of their senses. And so while you're you and I'm me, there could be an aspect of a we, of a consciousness, which is kind of an interesting concept. It might hopefully bring us as humanity being a lot more empathetic with each other if we were actually connected to each other like this. But it also gives an ability where long term, there could even be this idea of mind uploading. Not sure if you necessarily would be aware of this extended mind, but at least some version of an AI version of yourself could continue. Not sure if your awareness would continue, but that's certainly one element that Neuralink starts to present as a new optionality. Another space on this that we're starting to dive in on is also the future of computing. We're effectively using neurons as the basis for computing, where you could get access to additional neurons to be thinking. And again, that kind of extends how we are able to think and kind of be lifelong learners if we can also expand how we are learning overall. But I think the subset to say, longevity space, there's certainly no shortage of core categories here. We have a big belief that if we just look at the companies that we're investing in, some of these companies are going to have some pretty significant liquidity events within the next 5 to 10 years. So we do think that the timing is now for investing in a lot of these things. Part of it is that the breakthrough technologies have now arrived. Like epigenetic reprogramming was created about a decade ago. It's now actually being commercialized technically this year, next year. Same thing with lab growing organs is happening over the next 5 years. So it is, I think, the right time for this space has arrived. We've been very cautious. We've not done any epigenetic reprogramming investments for the last 2 years. And we've just been monitoring the space, and we're really excited with the ones that we've now chosen. So I'll stop there and kind of open it up for questions. But hopefully, you guys got a good overview of some of the biggest categories within the whole longevity space.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Scott. That was a tour de force through the future, and with some quite nice sci-fi components and tensions as well. I guess we gotta have a few more minutes leaving for Andy now, explaining us a bit of a background of the Venture University, the program and the accelerator, because as you heard from Sky, he knows, and he's in the business for almost 2 decades. He has learned a lot. I guess he made his mistakes as well. That's venture. But Venture University wants to basically leverage on the learnings that they have and the successes that they have, and how to spot winners in any industry, whether it's longevity or something else. And Andy will explain us a bit of more background of what Venture University does, apart obviously from investing.
Okay, great. So while I'm doing this, please do feel free to put any further questions that you have into the Q&A, and then Sky will get to those. So just a word or two of background on myself. I've been in Europe for about 42 years now. I spent the first part of my career for 30 years bringing US software into Europe, hundreds of different products. I was a partner at Deloitte for 10 years. I have 2 angel funds as well, and I'm very proud to have joined Venture University. I also set up the German government's startup program called the German Accelerator, which some of you may have heard of. We're now in about 10 different countries and take mostly German companies into other markets, German startups. So, and I just want to say that one of the main reasons that I decided to join Venture University together with my partner, who is also my son, Remy, is because it's really a company that's out to change the world. And I think that when you listen to a speech like we just heard, it's easy to smile. I find myself smiling at some of the things that Sky said, sort of, isn't that ridiculous? On the other hand, if we all look back 30 years and said, would we have believed that the things that are happening today, especially as we see what's going on with AI, would have happened? We probably would have been smiling back then, and we missed a lot of opportunities. So one of the key questions is, how do you actually learn? Who would have the confidence to invest into this kind of a technology, knowing what sort of the normal lay person would know, or even someone who has certain amounts of investing background, like angel investing? And I just want to explain the way we do this at Venture University. I was personally fascinated when I understood how the Investor Accelerator works. So essentially at VU, we are running our fund, the entire fund, which has about $70 million right now of committed capital in it. We're a normal VC fund. We invest globally. We invest tickets between 200K and $1 million. We can go up to 2 to 3 million on follow-on. The name of the fund is VU Venture Partners. And why is that name so important? Because it really is the case that the venture partners in our fund are the ones essentially doing 95% of the work. So what that means is that we run a investor accelerator inside our fund every quarter. To explain to you what that means is people apply to be accepted into the program. And when there is tuition, there are special prices also for SeedBlink members. When you join the program, you are immediately a full partner in the fund. What that means is it's an 11-week program. The first week is a 40-hour masterclass where you learn from Sky, from our other general partner, all about venture capital and Harvard-level course material. The second week of the program is 60 startup pitches. You'll be able to watch about 30 of them because they overlap. You'll see Sky and you'll see Andrew and some people who have been in for 2 or 3 cohorts, how they interview startups. How do they ask the right questions? What is a real VC case? Then we all stay on the line. Everything is run virtual, just like we're doing it today. We stay on the line after the startup leaves and we discuss it among ourselves. Is this a good case for the fund or is it not a good case for the fund? And those are the first 2 weeks of the accelerator. The next 9 weeks, you are a real partner. What does that mean? You join one of our 6. We're actually adding climate tech this time as a vertical. So you join one of our 7 verticals and you meet with your vertical team every week for about an hour or 2. And everybody talks about the deals that they're looking at. Now you might ask yourself, where do you get the deals? Well, we are doing the deal sourcing. We have about 850 alumni now. Alumni are incentivized for their entire career to bring in deals. That means we share the profit with them when they bring us a deal. So a lot of the deals that you're seeing, you say, how did they get into these deals? It's because our alumni brought them in for us. So everyone in the cohort, and there's usually around 50 to 60 people in a cohort, gets about 100 deals to look at. Some look at 5, some look at 200. It's really up to you. You can do it part-time or full-time. But your team comes up with 2 deals that you bring to partner meeting. And so each week we have a partner meeting on Mondays, like any venture capital company does. And you get to see every deal that the partners are looking at. We discuss them as a cohort. We decide which ones we should go into due diligence on. On Wednesdays, there's a deal flow meeting. And so those 3 main meetings, one with your team, one partner meeting, and one deal flow meeting, That's how we run the cohort. And the rest of the time, you're actually working on deals. So this is the difference between reading lots and lots of books about how to play tennis compared to getting on the court and taking a racket and starting to hit the ball. You do have our checkbook in your hand. What that means is that everybody gets an email address from the fund. You have access to our CRM system. So obviously there's confidentiality included here. Yeah. And you make the calls, you talk to the startups together with your team, you do the due diligence, you get guidance on all of this, and then you take the deals to the investment committee. And the kinds of deals now that you're looking at here are deals from that Sky has just been talking about. So you can imagine if we have 50 people on the average looking at roughly 100 deals each, then we look at 5,000 deals a quarter. The actual number from last quarter was over 3,760 deals that we looked at. Yeah, and we want you to have skin in the game as well. We want you to feel like even though it's the fund's money that's being invested, we want you to feel like your money is being invested. So 10% of your tuition that you pay to be part of the cohort is actually invested in all the deals that your cohort did. Now you might say, how many deals do they do? Well, the last time we had 10 investment committees. And while we say conservatively that we invest in 3 to 4 deals every quarter, we actually invested in 8 deals last quarter. And in addition, did 3 follow-on deals from our current portfolio. So when you graduate the program after 1 quarter, or if you stay for a whole year, 4 quarters, you'll have done 3 to 4 deals where you have really done the deal start to finish. You are the deal maker that has really done the learning. And you've also built a community around you of people that you're working with who are with you forever. So you're an alumni of our program forever. Alumni have access on a monthly basis to all of our deal flows at all times. And this group that you're working with are, the people who did the exercises of understanding epigenetic programming are people who've done their PhD. We had a woman who had her PhD in epigenetic reprogramming leading the group. We had a guy who was the first chief digital officer of Novartis Pharmaceutical in the cohort. And we have access to our 850 alumni. And certainly we would be most interested in talking to all of you. We're looking for genuinely professional people who are open and willing to learn. Yes, some of it's very sci-fi, some of it's very out there, but just so you know, there's no hidden agenda here. The cost of being involved in the program is about the same as doing an average angel investment. So it's about $20,000 to be in for 1 quarter. If you stay for the whole 4 quarters, it's $45,000, and we do have special pricing for all SeedBlink members. So we would be honored to interview you. We'll talk about it very openly, whether or not we think you're qualified and whether or not you feel that it's something you want to do. Interestingly, our next cohort, and there are a few spots open, starts on Monday. So it's not too late. I'm happy to talk to people in the next few days. And you're welcome to also join the masterclass, which is starting for just the first week of the cohort is the masterclass, and that begins next Monday through Friday. So if you're interested, please let us know. You're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and you'll all be getting details about this afterwards. For those of you who want to see, are all the deals as crazy as this one? We do have our reverse demo day, which is where our cohort members actually pitch. So in a normal demo day, you have startups pitching. In a reverse demo day, you have the investors who were in our cohort actually pitching deals. And this Friday at 7 p.m. Central European time, we'll have that, and we'll send you also the link for that as well. So I think we have now about 10 minutes left for questions, and I see that someone was kind enough to write into my WhatsApp that the actual number of deals we looked at last quarter was 4,673. And so when you invest in 8 of them, you can see that we are still quite selective and careful about where we do our investments. So Ronald, back to you to moderate the last 12 minutes of Q&A.
That was probably the easiest hosting I have done for a webinar, because you guys are basically running the show here, so appreciate that. I see that Sky was already active in answering the question. Normally we basically answer them in the call, but it's no big deal. I'm just wondering whether everybody can access that. I would hope so. I would propose then that we start with the still open questions, Sky, and one of them is, are there other companies that you're looking at in terms of preventable health, like P53 gene works for preventive cancer? Do you have something you're looking for preventing Alzheimer's?
Yeah, actually, one thing it ties to the overall topic around in the world of, like, historically within healthcare, most of the industry has been around solving symptoms that have already occurred. Like you only solve cancer actually after you already have it. And the whole idea even around longevity is actually still controversial. This idea that you can actually, the aging itself is a disease. The healthcare industry does not, most of the healthcare industry today just sees that as a natural thing that happens versus actually addressing aging as a disease itself. And so a lot of the world has been around not only the world of solving an issue, but on the diagnostics of it. And in diagnostics is certainly still very important to do. I chuckle a lot when I meet with companies that are doing diagnostics for Alzheimer's. It's like almost 50% of people are going to get it at some point. So I'm not sure you necessarily need a diagnostic for it. But the idea of actually stopping you from getting Alzheimer's to begin with would be a lot more interesting. Same thing with not getting cancer to begin with. So we certainly have invested in the Alzheimer's and dementia space. We did actually a company that we have in the portfolio that is an early detection of not only Alzheimer's and dementia, but also treats it. It's a great business model because so many people do get it, given it's such a high market of people that get it. But it's a telehealth solution for Alzheimer's and dementia. And once you're a subscriber, you're basically a subscriber for life until you're dead. With the future obviously coming of some of the solutions that can be done, I think that's a bigger market, but that'll still be over the next probably decade for that to come to market. But on the preventing of Alzheimer's itself, probably the leading technology that I'm aware of is really coming out of Dr. David Sinclair's office at Harvard, where he's already shown that he can use epigenetic reprogramming to bring back the neurons and cells of the brain where you don't have Alzheimer's anymore. And so that's been proven already now in mice. The next thing is to actually bring that to humans, which is really exciting. And as I mentioned, in some of the responses I gave in the writing into the Q&A, looks like there's a lot of consensus that over the next 20 years, life extension will likely increase to at least about 125, if not maybe up to 150. And the human body on its own, if you don't basically get, if your brain doesn't go, your heart doesn't go, and your immune system doesn't go, and you don't get cancer, the human body will live effectively until about 125 to 150. You need, at that point, epigenetic reprogramming to be able to push the body to be able to live hundreds of years or thousands of years beyond that. We do think that breakthrough is now coming, which is that probably over the next 50 years plus, there will be kind of hitting what we would call the longevity escape velocity. But like the one statement that appears to be very true is the longer you live, the longer you will live. And so if you can live over the next 50 to 100 years, we could possibly be part of the first generation that has the option to die and could actually live a lot longer than we ever thought we could. Which is why I also think one of my biggest beliefs, kind of a contrarian point, is I think most people are unaware of actually how long they're going to be living for, and they're not planning for it. I think everyone's still planning to die between 70 and 100 or so. Next question here was around the profit sharing agreement. Correct. So Andy touched on this. We have a profit sharing agreement that everyone gets. in the cohort deals that are selected, everyone receives upside. We've had great successes. We had a company like Bear Flag Robotics, which is an autonomous driving tractor that drives itself. 13 months after we invested, it got acquired for 250 million pre-revenue, pre-product, and we returned over a third of everyone's tuition, which was pretty awesome. We had another recent exit called TouchCast, just got acquired for 500 million, basically pre-revenue, pre-product as a company as well. And that was a digital twin generative AI company. It was actually the first one that about a little over a year and a half ago, I was the first VC in history to have a digital twin raise money. So my digital twin pitched our investors and they invested by just having my digital twin present and asking my digital twin questions. And then it got acquired for 500 million a year or so later.
Sky, can I just add one thing to what you just said, just so that it's clear, for everyone? Each time a deal goes through the investment committee and the fund decides to invest, we also open an SPV so that people can invest next to the fund, starting at $5,000. We are also working very closely with SeedBlink on that as well. And I just want to mention, somebody wrote in here, I've done 23 angel investments. Is it still for me? One of the main reasons that I personally decided to join VU is because I have 2 angel funds. I have about 18 million of capital under management. I did 55 investments. I have about 31 left. The others that are not there, I mentioned about 10 disappeared, and I would say 10 had some small exits. And what I really wanted to learn at VU was, how do I manage my portfolio, and how do I exit, and how do I pay back my investors? And I can tell you that if I had known what I know now after doing 4 quarters of VU, it's a little embarrassing to say I probably wouldn't have done about 60% of those investments. But I now have 6 of those companies in M&A processes for sale. So I would say that if you're open to learning, lifelong learning, even if you've done 23 investments, you will find great comrades and people next to you where you'll learn a lot inside VU. Back to you, Sky.
Yep. Another question was asked about what's the fastest way for a new investor to build a track record. I'd say really co-investing with the best is a good way to build a credible track record. And so you can join our syndicate to invest on a deal-by-deal basis. So all of our deals, we open up to our syndicate. We have one of the world's largest syndicates. It's about almost 8,000 accredited investors. And it invests alongside of our committed fund. So you can join our syndicate called Bonded. There may be an email afterwards that gets sent out for you to join the syndicate, but minimum investment's $5,000 per deal. You can join our syndicate calls where you can ask questions about any of the opportunities alongside of our investment team that did all the due diligence. And you know that you're investing in some of the best deals. We're ranked as a top 2% performing VC fund. So if you just look at over the last few years, we've outperformed even top decile performance. Again, we've had historically 25 unicorns, 20 plus multi-billion-dollar exits. Just over the last few years, we've now had over 10 unicorns in our portfolio, and many more that are about to happen. Actually, fun thing we just learned this morning, before even getting on this call, we have 2 new 10x exits that we're likely to have. One company is called 1X, which is a humanoid robotics company. We invested a few months ago at 1.2 billion. It's now worth 10 billion coming up with their raise, and we're looking to sell in the secondary. We have another space company that we're about to exit at 10x as well. So part of this is the fact that we have an unfair advantage that we're looking at 20,000 deals a year and only doing 15 deals. So getting access to those particular 15 top deals and being able to co-invest alongside of us is certainly the easiest way to do that. And let's see what other questions we have. How do people use VU to launch their own fund or to get hired by a VC firm? Great question. So as you go through Venture University's program, between our masterclass, advanced modules, fireside chats, and our apprenticeship, you basically are going through the whole process of an emerging fund manager to learn how to do deal sourcing, due diligence, closing investments, partner meetings, investment committees. And then we also train you in how to launch your own fund entity. And so we have a fund administration module that we go over, where effectively after doing VU, within 1 week, you're in a position where you can launch your own syndicate or launch your own fund. And we've had a number of people do that over the years. And so it really is designed for people that want to launch their own syndicate or fund after. Usually our recommendation is that you do a syndicate first, do deal by deal, build up your track record of 10 to 30 companies, and then launch your first committed fund is usually the process. And VU is a great kind of onboarding process to doing that. And then if you're looking to get hired by a venture fund, we frequently get asked from the industry to curate 3 to 6 candidates for different venture roles. And so we're then introducing those candidates to those venture jobs. We're also in the process of launching a new platform that we just announced called VU Jobs, which is specifically curating the venture capital jobs and placing people within those to do interviews with a stronger filtering process. But I think the key thing is when you're applying to work at a venture fund, almost everyone is applying saying, I want to do venture capital. I was a founder. I was doing investment banking, consulting. Very few people are saying, I've already done venture capital and I've already made 7 to 30 investments. And if you're with us for 3 to 12 months, you'll have 77 to 30 investments. And you can say, I've sourced deals, I've done deals, I've passed on deals, and let me tell you why. And so you significantly differentiate yourself. And that's why we have a much higher success rate in people going through venture university and getting jobs in this industry, because everyone else is just saying they want to do it and not actually doing it from experience. Let's see. Question here. I guess more. The longevity revolution has been talked about as being imminent for more than a decade, if not longer. What do you make the time is now? I'd say part of it is really the timing of epigenetic reprogramming. If you look at what technology exists to actually be a needle mover to really extend lifespan and health span, everything else is basically very marginal. Like eating healthy and exercising more, you'll live an extra 5 or 10 years. Like congratulations. But everyone that has exercised and ate healthy still died. Right. And so if you really are trying to move the needle, the epigenetic reprogramming revolution is really where it's at. That was only discovered about a decade ago as a breakthrough science, and now it's finally being commercialized in different cell functions. And so I think that's really the breakthrough is like when do you actually have that breakthrough tech? And that's really what happened about a decade ago, and now it's being commercialized. I think we're coming up at the top of the hour. I guess should I finish up some of the remaining questions here?
I think we'll probably send the answers to all the any unanswered questions, Sky, when the information is sent out to everybody in the recording of the webinar.
Awesome. I did one last question here at the bottom. If you're raising a fund now, how do you support LP connections? So we actually just started a dinner series. It's a global dinner series called Co-Hosted Capital, where we're hosting these dinners around the world and inviting LPs to join, as well as a select up to 5 GPs per dinner. So you can check it out on our LinkedIn profile. If you looked up me, you'll find the list of the co-hosted capital events coming up. But we're doing them globally. Just between now and the end of the year, I think we have about 15 of them or so planned. And then going into 2026, we'll have a whole nother set of kind of global dinners that we'll be doing. But we also have a platform called LP Match. You can go to lpmatch.com. You can submit your deck, and you'll be automatically matched to LPs every week. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, you'll be matched with 3 LPs. And it's a completely free platform, so anybody can join. And it avoids spamming. So basically, it's kind of like a Bumble for LPs and GPs, where the GPs get sent 3 GPs every Tuesday, and they choose if they want to follow up.
Are you tight on time, Sky, or can we do a bit more?
I can do a little bit more. Yep, I'm good.
Okay, because
Ronald, I'm going to drop off, but thank you very much.
Fair enough.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Reason being that when we send out the recording, obviously it's easier for people to see the questions answered orally because they can't obviously see the Q&A session. That's why I think pick your favorites, also of the ones you answered, and leave it in your capable hands.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. What do you think about the impact of lifestyle diseases like diabetes on lifespan and health span compared to these cutting edge technologies? Yeah, again, these are things that will ultimately, I think, add, if you can solve things like diabetes, you're going to be adding about 5 to 10 years at most overall to your lifespan. So I think they're good. They're good to do, but these are very incremental improvements overall in the grand scheme of things. So one of the things that we like to focus on are what are going to be the biggest magnitudes of improvement. We're not trying to invest in iterative improvements. And so like I've been looking at the cancer space for almost 2 decades. I've never made a cancer investment up until yesterday. So I finally wired money to General Proximity. And again, I've seen lots and lots of cancer deals. And so the fact that it can actually solve 50% of cancers and be a preventative cancer drug in a natural way, which gives me high confidence that it'll pass, phase 1 safety. It'll likely pass then phase 2 for efficacy. This was a huge opportunity for me not to pass up on. But it's taken a lot of me saying no for the last almost 2 decades for cancer deals. And again, for me, what I really don't like about the cancer space is there's so much around just diagnosis, and most of the solutions out there just make you hurt in other ways, and don't actually solve the actual problem. So I'm real nitpicky on the whole overall cancer space, and excited now we've done that deal. That was also interesting case study for us because the General Proximity round is now 3x oversubscribed. So they're raising 25 million and they have over 60 million committed. I was able to convince the founder to preemptively take my money before he even kicks off this Series A of 25 million that he's 3x oversubscribed for. So one of the nice things is about our relationships, and also being a smaller fund, is we can kind of sneak in before rounds are actually happening. We did the same thing with Conception Bio. They're not raising now. We developed a thesis around lab growing eggs. And I told the healthcare team, let's meet with every company, lab growing eggs, and let's see if there's something that is truly breakthrough and commercializable in the near future. And Conception Bio is like, we're not raising now, but if you want to invest on like an uncapped safe, no discount, just to like put money in, I'm like, done, I'm in. And you do that selectively when a company's not raising. Fast forward 2 months after we approved it for IC, we were kind of still getting everything together to do the round because there was no timeline because the company wasn't actually raising. And also creating those allocations is one of the great things about being part of our syndicate. What sort of question here is what sort of companies make this kind of pre-product acquisition in this sector? Well, again, I'd argue that the nice thing about being very frontier is acquirers are more likely to buy you very preemptively as a result. And so you kind of get two optionalities of when to get acquired. You can kind of just pitch the big vision and show that you're making R&D progress, or you can wait to start commercializing and then you'll even coming in for a much bigger exit. But when you're investing, at under 50 million valuations, if you get acquired for 250, 500, it's still a fantastic exit. But you still have a play where you could shoot for a much higher return multiple as well. But that is something that I didn't believe early in my venture career. I thought that frontier was more risky because it was frontier and it was like 10 to 20 year time horizons. Some of our best exits have been pre-revenue, pre-product companies where we've made 10 to 20 X's in 12 to 24 months. And so it has definitely taught me my lesson that there's this interesting nuance to the kind of the wilder it is and frontier it is, actually the more likely it is to get acquired early, but still for a pretty significant amount of money. Let's see, when evaluating investment opportunities, how do you evaluate and de-risk? And as part of the de-risking, how critical is the regulatory pathway? Great, yeah. So yeah, on the regulatory side, we don't really care too much about regulatory stuff. Most of the founders that we're backing are way ahead of regulatory situations. So regulatory will basically be defined by the future disruptors that are happening. We've done a number of companies. We're early investors in Uber. When it was illegal to do a lot of what Uber was doing. We also did a Latin America version of Uber, where the company literally told us that they were going to get shut down about a month after we invested. But they told us before we wired the money, they're like, we're likely going to get shut down, but it's okay because we're going to reopen within 24 hours. And Uber did it as well. And we were aware that Uber did it as well. And everything's been fine. It's been 6 years and the company is still growing in Latin America. And so you really have to be willing to be a contrarian in that regard. Same thing with like the longevity space. Some of these companies are not going to be in the United States. And there's certain areas in Latin America. Honduras has become a very hot spot for the future of longevity as a longevity zone. The United States is planning to create some longevity zones where people can at least have the optionality to take phase 1 drugs that have passed safety. They might not have passed efficacy, but they've passed phase 1 safety, where at least in the United States, people can, if they're really in bad health, can at least get and try these drugs that have passed safety. So things like that are starting to happen. But on the de-risking side, I'd say, part of it is we play a fun game every quarter of who's going after the largest possible market opportunities. We literally give an award at the end of every cohort for who's defined the biggest market and has calculated it themselves. It's not what the founder told us. And going after the biggest market de-risks a lot of this because it gives you a much easier capability of generating revenue, easier way of also getting acquired for a significant amount of money before you're generating any revenue or product. And so market is definitely a big one. We actually, as a contrarian view, something that we share at Venture University, is that we prioritize market over team. If you have, a lot of people think team is everything, but a team's ability to execute compared to market size, it's actually interesting of the amplification difference. If you're doing private equity, I think it is about team because it's basically you have something that's working. It's like, don't screw it up. But in venture, if just generating revenue and getting to profit, that's not success in venture, right? If you go after a small market and you're able to generate revenue and become profitable, you're never going to exit for that much money. So market size is a much bigger amplifier of final return outcome than the human's ability to execute, which is fascinating. And we have some pretty good data to back this up. Obviously, you want an A market and an A team. But if I had to choose between an A market and a B team or an A team and a B market, I would go with the market over the team. And I understand that that's a contrarian perspective. But if you look at the magnitude of impact, a market valuation of a company could be between 10 million to $1 trillion. It's about 1,000,000x of a spectrum. A human's ability to execute like every single day, night, weekends, holidays, the difference between a good executor and a bad executor, you might be off by like 10x. And so it's a very different situation when you're thinking about the amplification of outcome as a result of that. So those are certainly some of the frameworks that we teach at VU. We love to kind of go over frameworks, but we also go over a lot of the exceptions to those frameworks at the same time. And that's part of what makes this a very interesting experience at Venture University is you get to learn a lot about case studies that we've done and a lot of the failures that we've also had in the process. So you get to learn through both on my track record, Andrew's track record, Andy's, my partner James overall. So being able to be surrounded by people that have seen lots of deals when you're presenting at partner meetings, getting that quick feedback when you're pitching a deal at partners meeting of why we're saying we like it or don't like it. You're pitching a sounding board that has made 400 plus investments, and so there's a lot of insight that comes from that, and you can take that wisdom and bring it into your own angel investing strategy or your own venture fund that you're operating afterwards. And then we're always here for you too. We have people that'll follow up with us once they do their first term sheet, once they're working on term sheets at their own fund. We're here as mentors even after you graduate. And we love co-investing. There's a lot of co-investing that happens across all the alumni in our fund. And that is part of our secret sauce is the fact that you have a growing alumni network that you're going to get access to that'll provide deal flow, due diligence capabilities, LP access, career opportunities. So that long tail value is a really nice thing. We're about to have our 1,000th alumni coming up, which is very exciting. We have cohort 50 starting on September 29th, and it'll be also our 7th year anniversary. So we'll be doing some big announcements coming up for that. But yeah, definitely welcome everyone to join us for the upcoming cohort on Monday. That'll go until middle of December. And we operate 4 cohorts, 1 cohort a quarter. And you can also join our syndicate if you're looking at co-investing alongside of us.
Brilliant. That sounded almost like the final word, and we're a bit overdue. And we all need to get to our next appointment. So thank you very much indeed. It was a pleasure and honor and always educational to hear you talking about your experience, Sky. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for participating, and we'll send the recording after the session, so you have it in your inbox very shortly. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great evening and good morning to the West Coast. Ciao,
Thanks,
ciao.
everyone.